Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. It is the 5th of March, 2021. Welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. I pray that wherever you are, there's progress being made against the coronavirus pandemic. Here in Brazil, the situation is worsened. We're having the most dramatic rise in deaths and illnesses caused by coronavirus since the very beginning of the pandemic here in Brazil. For some reason that I don't seem to be able to get a grasp on, we have taken a step backwards, and there's complete lockdown of our state here once again. So we would appreciate your prayers during this very difficult time for the Brazilian people. I know the same thing's going on across Latin America, in the northern hemisphere, across the globe. And so we need to pray for one another during these difficult times. Our thought for today is the conflict of wills. The conflict of wills. This devotional that I wrote many years ago was during a period of my life when I was trying to understand what were the benefits of doing the will of God. I remember I was deeply immersed in trying to understand what are the benefits of living out every single day the will of God. And it was a great time for me to grow, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And here's a devotional that I wrote. Hopefully it'll help us to think together. Then you can take these thoughts to Jesus. Wars are conflicts of wills. Wars begin when men seek to impose their will on others. And wars on earth only end when one side is forced to submit to the will of the other. Wars are common among men because in Adam, the first Adam, we have all eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This is the tree which inspires and sustains our conflicts of will and is the root cause of all war. Jesus taught us to pray for God's will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. He said, Our Father, taught us to pray it like this: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 and 10. Jesus knew how to stop our war of wills. He knew we could never stop the war of wills on earth without him and without embracing the will of his Father. In heaven, there is no conflict of wills. There is no war in heaven because the family of God in heaven rejects the tree of the knowledge of good and evil with its power to lead into the war of wills. The entire family of God in heaven feeds continuously on the will of God, which is the tree of life. Jesus said these words to people who were talking to him one day. He said, But he answered and said to the one who told him, Who is my mother and who are my brothers? He stretched out his hand toward his disciples and said, Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. Matthew 12, verses 48 to 50. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. Jesus is the kingdom come. Jesus is the tree of life. Jesus invites each disciple to abandon the war of wills and live the kingdom come. Jesus is peace on earth and goodwill toward men. And one of the most beautiful stories in the New Testament, and I talk about this story all the time, is that famous encounter between Jesus and the woman at the well. And near the end of that story, the disciples returned from the little city where they'd gone to get food. And they're really concerned about Jesus' physical strength. And he had not eaten, and they were bringing him food. And they were very concerned about him not having the energy to go on and do what he needed to do. And Jesus looked at them and said, my food is to do the will of God and finish the work he has given to me to do. This is my food. One of the benefits of doing the will of God is your own inner state is energized to continue to live. You find purpose for life. Doing the will of God many times is running cross-cultural to where we live, in whatever country that might be. But doing the will of God has this benefit to us that when we do the will of God, we are energized to be the person that we need to be to fulfill the will of God in our lives. So we can stop the inner war within us, which is the war you can't get away from. You know, if a war breaks out in Europe, you can flee to another country, get as far away as you can. Maybe you go to New Zealand or Australia and try to get as far away as you can from the war. But if you have an inner war inside of you, you can't get away from you. And Jesus offers to us peace. But that peace comes when we align our will with the will of God. And that's why the Lord's Prayer is so beautiful. It tells us to align our will with the will of God. We can also begin to have peace not only in us, when we do the will of God, we have the peace of God in us as our food, but we can have the peace around us. In the Lord's Prayer, he talks about that we need to forgive our debtors, and we need to be forgiving. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. He's talking now about the end of conflicts that are related to us, that are near us. It is so wonderful to live in a family structure, for instance, where there are no conflicts of will. That is a major accomplishment. If you've been able to create an environment between a husband and a wife where there is peace, it's because you're doing the will of God. When that peaceful relationship permeates groups of people, it's a beautiful thing to see. So we can, by doing the will of God, we can end the war of wills within us. We can end the war of wills near us. And then we can build a life by practicing the words of Jesus. And he says we will be like a wise man or a wise woman who's built their house upon the rock. And the winds and floods, we can actually create a kind of stability where the will of men, evil men, cannot destroy us. If you look at the life of Jesus, and you will see him as the will of God being done. If you will look at Jesus and see that he is the will of God in action. Now here's what it would mean to be a disciple. Every commandment that Jesus gave us, turn the other cheek, go the extra mile, love your enemy, especially in the Sermon on the Mount, all the things he commanded us, every single behavior is in alignment with the will of God. And the more aligned we are with the will of God, the more peaceful we will become, the more useful we will become, and the more fearless we will become. There is no other way for peace than the way of Jesus, the truth of Jesus, the life of Jesus. One of the biggest mistakes we'll ever make in our Christian discipling of people is to not teach them the benefits of doing the will of God, or the benefits of abiding in Christ, or the benefits of living in the Spirit. These are all benefits of being aligned with that kingdom that is coming and has already come in the person of Jesus and already lives in you. Live at peace within. Live at peace with those close to you, and live at peace in this difficult world, and keep your feet and your house planted and built on the rock. Do the will of God. Every commandment of Jesus will give you greater peace, less conflict. Have a great day. We'll see you again on Monday, Lord willing. May the peace of Christ be in us all during all this day. God bless you.